everyone, and welcome back to another International Women's Day video. We hope you're enjoying this week of inspiring content, and I'm delighted to be bringing you another interview with a very good friend of mine, Tanya Rolfe, who is the managing partner at Her Capital. So I'm going to hand over to Tanya to do a little bit of an introduction, and then following a similar format to videos earlier this week, we're going to be running through a couple of questions as it relates to International Women's Day this year. So Tanya, over to you. Tell us who you are, what you do, and what you're passionate about.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Tanya, managing partner at Her Capital. We are a female-led and female-focused venture capital fund based here in Singapore and supporting women founders across Southeast Asia, particularly within the transformative technology space, which includes HR technology, consumer technology, ed tech, and fintech. We also look at female health deals, and we do a small amount of impact investing with returns.
Fantastic. And before your career at Her Capital, your time at Her Capital, what were you doing?
Immediately before that, I was having 2 children. And then before that, I was working in very large international law firms in London and in Sydney, looking after big M&A corporate departments.
Fantastic. Okay. And obviously International Women's Day is obviously a big deal for you and your organisation at Her Capital, right? So I'm sure you've got lots of stuff planned as well.
Yes, it's going to be a busy 10 days or so, actually, doing a lot of events for other people like this, and also some of our own events going on next week. So big deal.
Fantastic. So busy lady, we're lucky to have you for the 10 or so minutes that we have this interview. So much appreciated. So first question for you, International Women's Day theme this year is leadership. So what are the qualities you admire in women leaders? Feel free to throw in some other examples of leadership you really admire as well. Okay,
so my answer to this is in specific to startups that we're looking at. Obviously, there's lots of different ways to look at leadership, but I'm obviously focused very much on the startup and investment scene. So that's going to be the base of my answer. So the founders that I admire the most have that, beyond obviously all of the business the requirements for the business to meet certain KPIs. The actual leadership piece is really important, particularly when you've got a very small business, and you'll know this, Sasha, from your business. Getting the right people is super important, and especially when you've got a small business and funds are not plentiful. So you're rewarding people often in unique ways. You're being creative, and you need to attract great talent for not huge, big corporate salaries, and that requires the leader, the CEO, the founder, to be likable, to listen, to take people's opinions and thoughts on board, and to be empathetic, and basically be someone that is nice, that someone wants to work with. The ability to attract great talent and retain that talent is so important. I would say that's probably the single most important thing for me when it comes to leadership for females, particularly of small businesses.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. You've got to sell people on the opportunity almost, right?
Get them bought into the vision. And have the sharing that passion. I know that at Her Capital we've got a team of 8 core members, and only my business partner and I are full-time employees. Everyone else is bought into the opportunity of what we can achieve, which is epic. And hopefully it's because they want to work with us, and if we were awful, we probably wouldn't be able to attract people, great, good quality talent.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose a lot of those kind of traits or characteristics are quite transferable even in the corporate setting, right? So for female leaders of large or even small growing teams, beyond just the salary and people coming to work because they have to be employed, how do you get them inspired about the work that you are doing to achieve those results as a team? So actually, I think a lot of what you're saying about startup founders and especially female startup founders is pretty transferable in the corporate setting as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And these are soft skills, right? These are soft skills. So often they're innate skills. They're intrinsically there, and yeah, they transfer across. They transcend all sectors, all types of businesses. These are just but super important. And I learned this when I was working in law firms and working with big top law firms, and everyone in our law firm had been to the best colleges and had the best law degrees, but guess what, the next door law firm had the same, and so all of everyone has the same level of education, roughly speaking, particularly at the top level in the law firms. So what is it that was the differentiator for our lawyers in securing and building relationships with our clients? It's people. It's the people skills, the relationship skills that really matter, and that is how we stood apart. It wasn't showing our impressive law degree, because they had that next door as well.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay, moving on to the next question. So how has COVID-19 influenced your work? And I know that we're in kind of a similar boat, that we decided to launch our respective businesses during probably the worst year for doing it, or potentially the best. It depends how you look at it. How has 2020 COVID-19 changed your work life? In fact, your life in general?
I've been asked this a few times, and I think it's I think there are some good and bad parts to it in terms of my business. So yes, you're right. We launched last year. Our official launch was in July, which I think was really in the height of the panic, of the unknown, I think is what it was. But we hadn't just thought. We launched in July. It is not something we just thought up in June, and let's go for it. This is a great time. It was more, it was a year or so in the making, and then of course COVID hit. I think we received our license from the financial regulator here in Singapore in January. And February was when we started to have the COVID cases here very early on. So the timing was, not great. But looking on the positive side, had we have launched the year before, like a lot of other funds who had been deploying capital, they were in crisis mode this time last year, because a lot of the portfolio companies were obviously doing terribly, because some of them were massively affected by, a lot of them were massively affected by COVID. So actually I try to think about it in a positive way, in that even though, no one wanted COVID to happen, actually the timing meant that it gave us time to step back and think about, we hadn't deployed any capital. So it was a unique opportunity to really think about very carefully and curate our portfolio based on the knowledge that we then had and we now have. And so I think in that respect, it's given us a very unique lens. On the fundraising side, it's obviously made life a little more challenging, because I suspect if it wasn't a COVID year last year, I probably would have been on the road fundraising, ideally in Europe and the US, etc. And I'm not. I'm in my apartment in River Valley, so every day. And that's affected my life a lot. I miss people, actually, on a human, personal level. I miss people a lot. So there's that, as well as travel, obviously.
Don't we all miss it? I think, yeah, it's been long enough. But Costa del River Valley is going to have to hit the spot for a little while longer, I think.
It's not too bad, actually. It's not too shabby.
Exactly.
As you know.
Exactly. Yeah, lovely place. Okay, perfect. So last question for you. What is the biggest piece of advice you would give to women who are starting their careers or starting their own business?
Okay. So I think that when it comes to starting your own business, and you'll know this, Sasha, is that it really is the hardest work. One of the big drivers for me to launch Her Capital, aside from the wanting to direct capital to female founders, was actually that in part it enabled me to have more autonomy, and it does for sure, but I don't think I've ever worked harder than I am right now. So it's a preparation for that, but that's gender neutral. That's the case for anyone starting a business. So it's being prepared for that, and is this the right time for you in your life? Because 4 years ago it wouldn't have been the right time for me. But there's that, and then there's also the fact that women starting businesses receive so little of venture capital funding that I think that often is a little off-putting for women to go into starting a business, and I completely understand that. But the good news is that Her Capital exists and other funds like ours, and there are increasing amounts of capital available for diverse managers, for founders, female founders, and it's about knowing your worth, making sure you've got a solid foundation for why you're starting the business and where you're going with that business, and knowing your worth and reaching out to the right people. It's not, finding that support, finding people that you trust. I often find that female founders are given a huge amount of advice from men, because they're the ones that are mostly in the ecosystem. Yeah. And it's a little misaligned with, I think, with the direction that the founder often wants to go in. And I think it's really important to find the right people to surround yourself with, whether that be, advisors, other senior leadership people in your team, or, speaking to VCs like myself, or other founders like you as well. That great source of support. I know that you personally are a great source of support for me, founder to founder, friend to friend. So it's super important to surround yourself with people that have your best interests at heart.
Yeah, totally agree. And to your point, having a very diverse network of support as well. So I know, for example, your advisor board is very diverse. So, it's not just about creating an all-women network of advisors. Like, no, that's not what we want. It's about having that balance.
Yes, absolutely. What I was trying to sort of demonstrate is that often I think when women are starting businesses, the people in the ecosystem are often men. And so then you only get one point of view. And so you consciously need to add some women into that mix to get that diversity that you're talking about.
100%. Totally agree. Fabulous. Those were our core questions. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy, but what you are doing is fantastic. And you're inspiring so many women who are thinking about starting a business, looking for investment. I just think you are really in the right place at the right time, and all power to you. And if you're watching this, please reach out to Tanya, check out Her Capital. You won't regret it. And Tanya, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Happy International Women's Day to you.
And to you.